All right, we are back again and joined by a guest. So I'm Jen Brazelli. I'm with Kyle.
I'm Kyle Godby, and this is finally the Tom Kerwin show. Tom, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Tom Kerwin. I'm in a different time zone, which is why it looks like I've got a glitter ball. This is just the evening sun filtering through the trees, which is
You're partying.
pleasant after a windy day. Um, but yeah, I've been looking forward to coming and chatting. I always love chatting with Jen and Kyle, and so I've been looking forward to this for ages.
Wonderful.
Okay, so where should we start? I mean, there's a lot of places, but one of the things I will say is when I think of, like, when Kyle and I talk about, like, the spirit of this entire thing is working with complexity and systems and sense making and etc. in the real world, she puts in quotes. And particularly, we have somewhat shared backgrounds, Kyle and I, to the extent that we skate around in design and designery places. And you, Tom, are another one of the folks who I know are out in the world in design places, but I think about tech, product, UX, etc. So I just feel like you're a real one. I know you get it on that level. So I would just be very curious if I literally only prompt with that high level, like, hey man, what's it like out there? Bringing it to the people and to the tech world. How's it going?
It's enormously fun. It's more fun now today than it used to be when I first discovered the world of complexity, and I know that's something you two have talked about as well. I had to take the journey. I had to do the ride where it's like, hey, isn't this cool? I'm going to share it with everyone, and everyone will like it too. And then finding that was just not the case, and gradually learning how, like, being still interested and still seeing, oh my god, knowing this makes sense of why so many things that are supposed to work don't work that way, and why we urgently need to change the way we're working, but also learning that explaining that from a theoretical perspective doesn't change anyone's mind, bringing evidence doesn't change anyone's mind, and what we have to do is slip it in and just be the change, isn't it? To be very cheesy, just do it, and
Be
then
it.
bring people along on the ride if they're okay with it, and if they're not, that's okay too, and let things emerge as they emerge. And I mean, that's basically what you talk about every time.
Do you talk about it that way with your clients? What you
Ah,
just said, do you use that language with your clients these days or no?
that's a good question. I would. It depends on the client. You know, I'm sure that's the same for
Yeah,
you.
episode full of cop outs. I can already tell. I can already tell. A lot of hedging language and a lot of cop outs coming. All right, ready.
Of course. But then you've got to say, well, what does it depend on? And I think you do some probes. So you try a particular word and you see, do they look unimpressed by that, or are they intrigued? And then you maybe tell some more. What I will never do these days is lead with the theory, lead with the names of the people or the names of the exercises. So I don't sell anyone estuarine mapping.
Yeah.
I sell them, hey, we can do some strategy together. And it
Hmm.
might be a bit weird, but go with it. And then if they're really interested, then share the names,
Yeah.
which is really hard when you are so excited and really eager to geek out about these cool things you've been learning. But yeah, which is, it's
You know
extra
what?
hard. I do make the mistake sometimes of trying to sell the methods that I've shaped and come up with and say, look, this method is really cool. And
Yeah.
surprise, surprise, that doesn't work either.
But you make a good point about in some contexts. So I have to believe, I've found this to be true, but in some places, if you are introducing something that you can then say, I developed this, there are people who want that. They go, oh, the developer of this framework, like, is here with us in the flesh. Like, I'm so excited. Like, I'm having surgery by the surgeon who invented the method that is about to be used on me. Like, there's something there. And then I'm sure on the flip side, you also have the folks who are like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Just help me solve this problem. So at least you've got
That's,
multiple. tools available. Yeah. Kyle, sorry, you look like you were about to say it, and I jumped in front of
Yeah.
you.
There's something I picked up on, Jen. I'm curious if you got this also. When I ask people this same question of how it is for you right now, I feel like everyone has this almost exhausted sort of, I need to drop all my bags right now, and just, yes, it's amazing, but
It's amazing.
and you kind of came through like, oh, this is delightful, like rayish sunshine. And is there that I need to put my bags down moment? Do you feel that? Are you feeling that now? Or is this the result of this sort of where we are today versus what you were saying before? It's very different than when you got started.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I think I've forgotten to put my bags down. That's what's happening right now. I think I'm still carrying them and just being like, hey, it's fine. It's fine. Give me another bag. It's all right. It's so there's the angle of how I think all of us now feel about the work when we get the work, and it is possible to do the work, and we can interact with clients in a different way than we used to, and be less bewildered or confused or upset about it. The flip side, I think, is that we are all living through right now a level of uncertainty that we were not prepared for either. And even though we've got all these tools that should make us great at handling uncertainty, man, it still is not okay a bunch of the time.
You know, it's funny because I always think of that phrase, the cobbler's kids have no shoes, or physician heal thyself, like same idea. And I actually used to use that a lot back when I was leading the delivery team at the one agency I was at. And, it was typical, like, super innovative, awesome agency whose own, like, internal practices were, a mess. Like, don't look in the house. Like, it said, don't look in that room where we've done. And it's like, I don't think about it a lot these days in relation to exactly what we're talking about here, but gosh, it is pretty apt. I mean, because how easy is it for us to talk about all the ways that we can help our clients navigate complexity and uncertainty and ambiguity, but to do it in your own life and living and even your practice. To your point about probing even the language that you want to use, which is I've never thought about it that way, but that's how I've always said I do it too, is like drop a word. Did you see their eyes respond or not next to the next word? You know what I mean? So anyway, what an intriguing, hey, complexity people, cobbler's kids have no shoes. Think about that one. That's my take.
Always the way. Does it give us, though, a little bit more empathy for what it's like for our clients, though?
God, I would hope so, but I'm not sure I see that, to be very, very frank. I mean, there are days where I want to respond to some of our peers and like violently shake them and be like, don't talk to me about participatory empathy, having good things you want to see in the world. Don't talk to me about that when you're so mad about X client not being this way or somebody being, obstinate about this. Why won't they just see it? Why can't I this, that, blah, blah, blah. If only they would. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's tough, but.
It's funny you asked that. I think I'm more empathetic of people in their arc of getting into this work and being frustrated by it, having that sort of air of, why doesn't anyone else get this? Why won't anyone else buy this? And being almost aggressive about it. Because I remember first walking into that and making that mistake. And I didn't visit that long, but I have a lot of empathy there. I for some reason, I probably connect okay to people that aren't getting it, but for the most part, I don't want to say not getting it. That's a little bit too static. But where do I want to go with this? I'm digging a little bit of a hole here.
I'm watching.
I know. I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you to start filling it over my head as I get under the dirt line. Something about begrudgingly being complicit in this sort of stuff. As like a lifelong punk, I've always just been like, you There you go. That's how it works. Like, you got to feel it a little bit, but at the same time, I think it's very different now. Sort of understanding this stuff now, working with those folks, as not going through the arc of I wasn't here before, but more knowing that it's not just that person as a independent node in this space that has to wrestle with something internally, that there are so many other forces that are shaping that person's worldview and position and ability to grasp these things and say yes to something, or take a step forward somewhere, or take a risk somewhere, all that kind of stuff. So to me, that's I think what creates more of that empathy than anything else, not so much my own path there.
It's
Hopefully I dug myself out of that one at the very end.
You did a beautiful, like a little ladder out again, made out of the nodes in the network, and you can climb on all the interconnections. I think it's time for an Adam Mastroianni drop, our monthly quota. Because did you see his latest one is very much about exactly what you just said, Kyle. I read it and I thought, damn, he's talking about affordance mapping, he's talking about energy gradients, and he's talking about how the things that people reach for that are obvious theory of change type approaches tend to overlook an awful lot of the messy human type stuff that you're describing.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually shared the latest on LinkedIn, and I almost tagged you and apologized that I did it, Tom, because you and I are just constantly doing that. I was about to ask, and I don't know if you guys want to dig into this or not. I mean, we can take it any direction, but because you mentioned even yourself, Tom, having gone through this like phase we keep referring to, the Don Quixote phase of, whatever you want to think about it like. And I think on one hand, we do a little disservice to like reduce everyone's journey into complexity. But putting that aside, we all understand that we're simplifying this for the purposes of this movie. What I would be really curious what you guys, if you were to reflect, how did you get beyond that? How did you get past that level of enthusiasm and excitement and curiosity that ran you headlong into a wall of some kind that also then produced a bunch of frustration, or a reaching or a grasp? I often thought about it as like I was reaching and grasping for others, right, to be in conversation with about it. But I have thoughts on my own experiences I'm happy to share later after you guys go, but I'm curious to hear. It's going to be a post hoc construction.
Of course.
And I'm trying to give you lots of time here. I'm giving you the lead time. See, I'm doing the nice slow. Okay, good. So you're welcome. You're welcome, both of you. But if you like had to kind of ask yourself like how and what it was that allowed you to get beyond that really frustrating moment in this practice, like what was it?
Do you want to go, or shall I go?
No, this is the Tom Kerwin show. You go, buddy.
I mean, I can think the first thing is I suspect that I have, for whatever reason, I've ended up with a bias towards I care about whether something works or not. And from what I see in the world, that's not universally the case, and that's okay. Things can work in different ways. They can work in ways that are not the ways that I would think they were working, but they're still working for you. That's cool. We won't go into specifics of what I'm talking about. But when I remember vividly finding these ideas from complexity science, having the light bulb go on and say, right, now I understand why everything we've been trying to do is so unreliable, why we can't make progress here. I'm going to go and share it. And I had enough times the experience of realizing that 2% of people would be very excited and want to nerd out about it with me and then do nothing about it. And 98% of people would glaze over within 30 seconds and wonder what the next actions are from the meeting. And after having that happen like 4 or 5 times, that was enough for me to go, well, hang on a minute, what I'm doing now isn't working. I've tried explaining it in 5 different ways. Nothing's going through, so I've got to set my own pivot trigger. I've actually got to change what I'm doing here. So that was the first thing. I don't think it was quick to figure out what did work, but I do remember. I think another thing that was huge for me was working on the card deck that I made, Innovation Tactics, because that was a process of each card in my original draft was quite packed with theory, and it was explaining this is why this is important, this is how you're going to understand, you're going to think differently, and then you just know what to do with it, right? But that's not the way that the card deck manufacturer works. It has to be a recipe on the back, and my God, that was painful. Try say, here's a recipe that anyone can follow every time, but the discipline of doing that, of being forced to think, well, hang on a minute, what are the steps that anyone could take, which at least some of the time, at least 80% of the time, will enable some good stuff to emerge that wouldn't have if they had done something else. And so I was there, and then effectively every card is pretty much some complexity science disguised as a simple method that you can just do. So that was a big one. And then finding that I could just start using methods without even announcing that I was doing it. So that's a lot of what I do with clients, is just start making maps, which are totally complexity science inspired, multiverse mapping, all of those sorts of things. They're all that. And I just do it. And then if it feels right, I share it. And then we jam on it and we see what happens. And stuff just works most of the time. So I don't have to share any of the language anymore.
What a good commercial right there for anybody who's like, why do I care about any of this? There, it just works.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
What's your answer, Kyle?
Mine's kind of brief, I think. I'll see if I can be brief. I had been doing this long enough as I'm going to do something different. Like the stuff that I'm working in, the process engineering world that I'm working in, it doesn't make sense. I know it. Everybody else knows it. I'm going to do something different. But I ended up being the heretic or the deviant, and it put me in this us versus them sort of position, and I just adopted this sort of us versus them sort of strategy constantly, probably 10 years of, I'm not going to compromise, they need to compromise. They know this doesn't work, they need to compromise. I'm the Rebel Alliance, they're the Empire, I'm not going to make friends with Darth Vader. That's out of the question. And somewhere along the lines, I found myself with a team of people, and I started introducing this, and they sat down and they said, this is fascinating. There's a future here, but I don't understand a word of what you're saying, and I don't know how to talk about this with anyone else. So keep working on it. And I had to stop and kind of say, all right, so you're not the Empire, but you're also not with me. There's another thing here, and I don't know how to deal with that. I'm getting energy from you, but I'm also not getting permission from you. I'm not getting let loose. We're not partnering, but I'm still being supported. And so for like 2 years, I worked with them on this refinement where they would come back and they'd say, okay, well, how do I talk to this person about it? Or what happens if I'm a person that has these requirements or these needs? Or what if this is the situation? You know, if we're not in a generative brainstorming discovery sort of mode, we're 6 months past deadline kind of mode, then how do you talk about it? And I had to say, that's a great question. Let me go back and think about that for a bit. And it really helped me develop this by not being this adversarial position all the time. And I found that the more I developed it, the more it started to click with people, the more attracted they were to it, the more I saw people less as the Empire and more as people struggling with this that I could relate to in new ways. And that became really seductive.
That's cool. Two things I heard in that. One was, it was the specific circumstances that helped you unlock. It was, hey, here's the real deal that we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
And you then get to do the difficult work of applying the theory to come up with something methodological that's scrappy but will work for
Very
them.
much so.
Rather than the default that I had as well, which was, if I explain the theory, you can work out how to use it. Right. And that's hard, and they don't want to do that. They're not interested enough. Fair enough. And the other thing is it ties into assemblages, doesn't it? You were the anti-assemblage, pushing more energy
Right.
into the thing that was there, and then you let go of that, and that's when
I
you
was
start to be free.
deterritorialized by the people around me. That's right. Yeah.
Deleuze is gonna swoop in here and be like, "You guys are doing it wrong," but it's
Let's
fine.
call him. Let's get him to straighten us out.
No, no, no. Um, it's interesting to hear both of these because, and I don't know if we've talked much about this on here or if I've ever really talked about it, but I I didn't really experience this with my journey. I still don't like this word. I don't know what it is. My entry into really starting to embrace more complexity science informed practices. Not in like a I'm better than people, but because I actually think I already had my reckoning with this reality prior in my career. But I've often kind of thought if I ask myself the same question, like, how did I move beyond that phase of wanting to either explain or persuade or, bring along people into the work in some form or another. And I used to kind of just sweep it along by saying I was lucky enough to be working in an environment, an agency where I was originally, when I was first starting to kind of bake some of this stuff into my actual work. I was in a place that was very open and like, yeah, go nuts. If you think it's the right thing, then do it. And that empowered me to bring it with clients where the clients said, hey, if you think it's good, do it. Because that environment I was already working within. So I've often kind of just swept it into that and said, oh, it's because I was lucky. But that doesn't actually answer the question because it wouldn't, I never struggled with a misconception that I needed to explain or persuade in advance. And so in this chat, I've just been thinking like, why? And I actually think if I go back further, earlier in my career, when I was doing a lot of work around science communication and risk communication and the science of science communication. And it's funny, Kyle, because we were just talking about this a little bit ago, sort of adjacent to it. There's a really like interestingly parallel thing in that world with science communication, which most people reduce to we need to just communicate the ideas that science is producing. If we explain it clear enough, people will do X, Y, Z. They'll either change their behavior, climate change or vaccines or whatever. Or if the goal is not necessarily informing or educating, sometimes it's persuading, it's advocacy. Science communication does a lot of different things, and I'm talking about risk and other stuff too. But even way back when this was way earlier in my career, there were plenty of people and there was plenty of interdisciplinary work happening, especially in the social sciences, that was bearing out exactly what both of you have just talked about, which is we have to accept that like evidence doesn't change minds and it doesn't change behavior. And in fact, it's very rare that you change someone's mind first and then their behavior follows. It's more often the other way around, if at all. And all the things we have talked about on this show before. And I'm just realizing right now, I think I got the crash course on this in my work there when I had to come to terms with my own, like, what do you mean facts aren't going to convince people? Like, if not facts, then what the hell? And I remember having that in that period of my life and my career. And then having that reckoning, and you make a good point, Tom, about, I hear when you make the point about really caring whether things actually work. Like, that's what someone says when they're in touch with reality. Like, it's reality testing. Like, not everybody is, wanting to stay as tethered to reality as maybe we do, but I suspect we have 3 reality testers here. And so I very quickly recognize, whether I liked it or not, facts aren't going to be the thing that changes anything. So you better abandon that method if you actually want to have some kind of impact. And often running into a whole other discipline there, so I won't go any further. But I'm just recognizing right now, I feel like I had that reckoning on a wholly different like disciplinary practice, so that when I started to learn about complexity science and have all the same experiences we talk about, it's like I got to bypass the Don Quixote phase because I already knew and had that like in my in my memory cells of my body, like we're not doing that again. You know what I mean? So I like skipped that phase with complexity. But it's interesting. I wonder who else we know who would identify with what we're talking about, who might have had a reckoning with the reality that you don't change behaviors in the ways that people think you do, if it comes from other fields as well. Because we know this is true in like tons and tons and tons of fields. This is not unique to systems or complexity related stuff. So
When you mentioned science communicators, I thought of an interview I remember watching with Hannah Fry, who's doing very well doing science communication type stuff at the moment. And she literally talked about you've got to find the fun hook, which is going to make someone interested.
yeah.
It connected to, I remember doing a read of the draft of a friend's book. This was several years ago now, and I thought it was brilliant. It took you through the process really, really nicely. He'd also got some feedback from people that he needed to be clearer. They needed it explained more. And he took the wrong message from that, because what I know now, what we I think all know, is what people mean when they say that is, I need you to explain to me why I should care.
Yes.
But what he took it to mean was, I need to put a glossary at the start of the book that explains in detail what everything I'm about to tell you is. And he ruined his book. It's really, really upsetting.
Aww. Is this friend someone that's going to hear this? Do we need to like, sorry, friend. Tom thinks your book sucks. But gosh, if that isn't like so much of like the work, which I'm like over that phrase lately. I'm sorry. But isn't that so much of the work? Like people interpret, you said like the fun hook, or like in teaching, you know, you activate prior knowledge and schemas, or try some way of making this meaningful and giving something, you know, ways for people to connect what's happening to their lives, or to see it, you know, in a way that is relevant to them. And like,
specific.
Watch people try to engineer it, and we are. It's like this meta challenge. You can't engineer it though. You can't say, all right, everybody, now think of a way that this relates to you, you know, like it's something that has to be itself emergent and driven by that person. So you have to create this like meta dynamic that at least ensures some space for it, whether it happens or not. But I don't want to go down too far of a weird meta swirl.
Now, can you give us a 3-step process for how to do that reliably?
Yeah, I'm serious. I mean, one of the things, and I promise we can shut up about the science communication stuff, but one of the things that was really, really hot in the early 2000, like the 2010 era, when this was what I was spending a lot of my time on it, were books about making your communication, you know, either funnier or more interesting or sexier or more emotional, you know, and the world of rhetoric. The study of rhetoric kind of fed into this, because there's a lot of different tools and strategies that come from rhetoric that tie into not just persuasion, but critical thinking that then informs how to connect with your audience and make things available to the audience. So, you know, at the end of the day, like there's a rhetorical process, and I see that show up here with complexity all the time. I just don't often have, you know, folks for whom the like vocabulary is going to mean anything, but how much of, you know, just sneak in the methods, but knowing that once you're there, you've earned the trust, and then later down the road, that might turn into something else, or being able to put the pieces in place in a process that will allow people to make it their own, or tie it to something that is actually useful for them, even if you can't dictate up front what that is. These are the kind of practices that people have been doing since Rome and ancient Rome and Greece. You know what I mean? So there's a pattern of history out there you can learn from. You don't have to make it up from scratch.
I want to prod you to write that article about what you were just talking about that realization that the facts don't matter. Similar to your note to the systems thinker, the note to self, the
facts don't
letter to
matter.
your former self. A similar, yeah, that being it. I just read one of those essentially in the psychedelic medicine community, where somebody was saying, look, this has never been about the data. It's never been about the science. We've known for decades that this helps people. We're now getting cultural permission to move forward. That's our mission now. It's to stop proving the things we already know. It's to start relating to people. And I kind of looked at that and said, this kind of resonates a little bit. Why I don't so much worry about the glossary. Because nobody's going to want to read the glossary. They're going to want to hear their stories combined with ours, and that's
The
it.
dangerous thing to say the facts don't matter outright. but within the context of what we're saying here.
Not the facts don't matter. I don't mean that.
But
we don't need to prove the facts yet again.
it gets into some of that stasis theory stuff that I already did write about the one time. But I will say this one. So I wrote it down. You saw me write it down just now. I might very well go ahead and write that. But I will say that part of why my instinct to sort of like go is because truthfully, people have been writing that article for decades. That's the other thing I find really compelling, is that we're not discovering anything new here on this topic. And what I took away from when I first entered that world, which kind of started when I was in grad school, was that it's like this extra like 3 levels of meta, because the science of science communication already knows these facts about how people relate to information or knowledge or relationships and change and stuff. And the whole science of science communication that understands these dynamics had its own problem trying to convey the fact that facts don't matter to practitioners, who then just interpret it as, I got to make it funny, and then put all the facts in after the first joke. And it was like this, I as a sort of an outsider, but then I became an insider in that world. Now I'm kind of an outsider to it again. I'm struck by the perpetual reinventing of the wheel on which people go, wait, facts don't do the job and there's more to it. And then realizing that they have to convince other people of the fact that facts don't matter, and then you're in like an MC Escher drawing or you're on a mushroom trip, and that's it. Like, it's done.
The whole theme is Cobbler's Children, isn't it? This is Cobbler's Children again.
Yes.
We've written the papers about why this won't work, and now we're going to ignore them while we try and do the thing. And it's because the tacit thing, isn't it? It's not something you can think your way into.
Exactly.
You have to have had a ton, because it's hard to do as well. You have to have a ton of feedback loops of facts not working and other things working.
Yes.
And how do you get those? Not from reading a book.
Sometimes it comes from reading a book, Tom. Why is everyone so down on reading books? Jesus. Just kidding. Yeah. Yes. I mean, so, not to pull on dance just out of nowhere. And I know you said you just kind of talked about this on the other podcast, so I hope it won't be like redundant and we're going to scoop you on it, because we might release this before that one does. I don't know. But
scoop away.
Dance, there's a reason dance is such a, I don't want to say common, but a compelling metaphor in this world, because you talk about feedback loops, you talk about being in touch with reality, you talk about shortening the distance of those kind of iterative, like, I do a thing, I see a response, or I feel a response. And, in an organizational setting, a feedback loop could be months. We do a study, we do research, we launch a thing. And I know that all of Agile and Lean and the entire, past couple decades have tried to shrink that time with varying results. But take it even shorter to on the level of an individual, 2 people in relationship, or you listening to someone or watching their body language when you try to drop an interesting word into a conversation, go even smaller down to literal bodily movement. And it's not lost on me that so many people we talk to have some kind of like movement practice in their life.
That's interesting.
You have one, Tom?
I had a pop of like horrific realization recently when it came to, I've been teaching dance for a very long time, and I had the experience as well where I thought I'll explain the theory and then people will be able to dance. And that never worked, but I didn't learn it at that point. I just thought that teaching dance was different somehow. So what we do now is we just put on some music and we get people to start walking around the room in time with the music. And then they've got something to work with, and then we make it trickier and then make it easier and push them in different ways. Sometimes do things in slow motion deliberately, just to scramble whatever's going on, and then incredibly fast, and then back to normal. So all these, I've got loads of tricks to get somatic and to get you doing the thing, so that then later you can understand why you're doing the thing. And it's fascinating. I do remember a phase where I could be teaching a dance class and get everybody to do a couple of swing outs, which is a particular move, which we could go into the detail of, but you don't really need to know. It's a move which is very dynamic. There's lots of complexity to it because you're adjusting at every stage along the way. What comes out looks pretty simple. We start, one person there, then one person goes round the other person, and we end up back where we started. That's all it is. But you can be doing that quite quick. And there's loads of variations you can add on, and there's loads of dynamics in the middle where there's some centrifugal force, and then there's these linear dynamics and stretch and spring and lots of weight adjustment. And when you first start doing that, it's an absolute mess. And people are lucky if they can just get round roughly in time without falling over or bumping into each other. And that's just the way it is. It takes thousands of repetitions. There are people who do, like, everybody's taken these classes. If you're what I do, a Lindy Hopper. It's Lindy Hop dance. It's a swing dance from the 1930s and 40s, originated in Harlem. I won't go into the full history of it, but it's wicked cool. You can probably find some near you, and I would recommend it. But yeah, everybody who's a Lindy Hopper has had this experience of going into a class, and the teacher says, okay, let's just warm up with 3 swing outs in a circle, and then the teacher throws away the lesson plan they had because we're working on swing outs. Because until you can do that right, the lesson plan I had is irrelevant. So you just end up an hour just drilling these things. So I've done millions now in my life, at which point I can feel the precise details at every single microsecond along the way, adjust it in real time, know how to change it in all sorts of interesting ways, and it's pretty cool. I've got to say, it's pretty cool. I can also walk into a room, look at a bunch of students and go, I know what we're working on today. Because there's that thing, you can see it now in the room in 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. Whereas walk into a company and it looks fine. It's difficult to see that sort of thing happening, and it takes time for those things to play out. And I remember finding that frustrating for a while. But now, recently, I've had the experience where, for us building our consultancy and trying to make sure that we are not failing horribly, having to grow, I'm having to learn sales properly. And I thought, oh yeah, it's fine, I'll read the books and I'll do it. And I realised, oh no, I am the person who's a beginner doing the first swing out, and I can't get round, and I can't feel the shape of a sales conversation. I can't feel when the right time to create the spring is, when the right time to move out the way is. I'm probably yanking my partner and it's really uncomfortable. I'm probably letting them go too early and ending up in the wrong place. And I can't tell why I'm doing that yet. And just realising I'm at the start of that journey still, and I've got a lot of reps to do, is at the same time exciting because I get to learn something new and that's cool, but also horrifying because it's going to be a load of work.
And it's got stakes, like it's higher stakes for you because it's your livelihood. But, you know, listening to you describe that feeling, I'm just reminded about how much I love being a beginner at things, and people who know me, you know, pretty well personally, like find this comically true about me, but I like being a beginner at things, not to the extent that I will go and start a million projects and never finish them, but every few years I look back at my life and realize I've started like a new hobby or something like that. And most of them I've continued. I don't drop them, but you know, things kind of come and go with the seasons. I only have so much energy for, you know, and time for different things, but it's much easier for me to enjoy them when they're a hobby, like, you know, playing the drums or learning different types of, you know, activities I do with circus and aerial arts and things like that, versus sales for my business to pay my mortgage, you know? And so I feel like you get and this is true in an organization, when you add the stakes that are existential, it has that effect. Like, we can't seem to like remember everything we've just talked about here, that it's true that you just need reps. And frankly, like, the better you can find ways to increase or accelerate, you know, reps or cycles per time period, the faster you learn, right? Theoretically, like in theoretical terms, not in like human learned terms. But yeah, I don't know. I'm struck by that.
There's something really interesting jumping out at me where I spent a few minutes in training design and had to do classroom design, and I was doing sales training for a bit. And one of the things I had to, and this is a bit of a confession here, one of the things I had to train was sales based on the temperances, the four temperances, the personality temperances. And so you read people's needs based on what you detect. They're coming in and they are being choleric. Like, I need to accomplish something. You respond with that degree of like, I will give you a direct solution. If they're coming in a little bit more sanguine, they want something that is going to be very illustrious, then you give them something that is sort of grandiose and sort of, with the veneer they're looking for. If they're feeling a bit phlegmatic, then you look at something that's going to be appealing to other people, that's going to satisfy their need to satisfy others. And if they're, what's the other one, melancholic, you get to their analytical needs. They need to know the dimensions, they need to know the stats, they need to know, all of the information. Where are the spec sheets, that kind of stuff, Give me all the links and all the downloads and that kind of stuff. And that's how you mirror that back, right?
Does that work?
It's a good starting point, is where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
It's a blunt tool. But on day one, if you're walking in the door saying, I've never been a salesperson before, can you give me a tip? This is a great thing to start working with, and then you develop your craft from there. But what it's making me think of is the amount of times that people have walked in and said, I'm thinking about this complexity work, can I go do this thing? And we're like, we're going to fight you on the semantics of that. It's not that exact word. Yeah. We have such an aversion to blunt tools, to people walking in the door.
Wow.
But there are so many other parts of our life where we're like, oh, thank God there's a blunt tool here. Otherwise, I would never go anywhere.
The blunt tool is like, we've all got trauma because people don't let go of their blunt tools. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Wait a second. We'll come back to that. We have to go back to this though. So there was like a program that was building out this process based on the temperaments. Like, what? Temperaments. But here's what I hear in that. Like, it's training wheels. If you're in sales, you have to read people. Mm-hmm. That's what you do. You read people.
That's pretty much
and
it.
If somebody doesn't know how to read someone, then like, okay, here is a out-of-the-box, ready-made, white-labeled set of archetypes. Here's 4. Learn how to read these 4 archetypes. And like, in theory, if this was an ongoing process, you might then hope that someone could eventually start to say, these 4 archetypes kind of aren't cutting it. Maybe I will throw them away. Maybe I'll add some. Maybe I will, add nuance or add an archetype. Maybe I will make my own. Maybe I will learn to make my own and use my own. Or maybe I will actually no longer need archetypes pre-made and be able to just read. And so like, you can kind of see that progression, which is so intriguing. But like, the temperaments, like, why wasn't it just like, I don't know. Oh, I can't. We're going to no.
It wasn't obvious. Like, nobody sat down and said it's the temperaments.
I know, but
when they handed over, it was like,
are you
wild. Satisfying their need to be heard? Are you satisfying their need for information? I looked at it and I went, oh, this is the temperaments.
Interesting.
I know this. Yeah.
Well,
so
tie that to what Tom was saying about like, so when you're dancing, and now Tom, you can kind of walk into a room probably of dancers and dance students and see people move. And you could, like you said, you can kind of quickly assess it. You're in it, you're of it. You've got those little sensitive antennae all over you, and you don't have that. I think like one, not you, Tom, but one can't really have that in the same way with an organization because it is so unique in and of itself. And so you've got to be kind of it. You can't walk into a room and read it right away. But at the same time, you have like I don't know, again, I think I've said meta like 20 times already, but it's like the meta skill of knowing that you do need to read the room and the dynamics, but that you're not there to impose something. You're there to read. You're there to direct attention to or to orient towards. And you probably pick up through faster cycles of touching and seeing what happens and nudging in the same way you would in a room full of dancers. You can become attuned to it and get there faster than somebody who, maybe has never thought about it or worked in this way or is like new to the practice of design or facilitation or whatever it is we're talking about. So there's like this challenge between all the ways that working with an organization is like dancing or teaching dance and all the ways that it absolutely isn't. But then also the fact that there's different stakes involved. Take your dance students and the teacher who threw away the lesson plan because it was like, we got to just work on this for this class because we're not going to get any further until everyone can kind of build up a little bit of muscle memory for this. What happens when that teacher's boss is like, no, by the end of today, everyone needs to be doing this more advanced move. You don't have the option. What then? What then?
Then you have to pull out your other tools and you
Yeah,
cheat.
yeah. I mean, but I think that's
I've also taught choreography to people who were quite new to the dance, and they're not going to do it with the full depth of connection and the proper
yeah,
technique. But you can get them to fake it well enough to do
yes,
the performance. And
yeah,
to an untrained eye, no one's going to know. So you've got those tricks as well. I think you have to sometimes pull them out the bag, but know that that's what you're doing as well.
yeah, yep. Oh, the
Yeah, there's
metaphors are
something
abounding.
about the nature of the partner dance, which is that being of a unit,
Yeah,
because there are the traditional roles of lead and follow, and this is something that people often come in thinking is that, well, the lead is going to do all the directing and the follow is just going to follow, but actually Lindy Hop is much more egalitarian than that. It's much more like a conversation, like a dynamic, and you're really sharing energy and passing energy back and forth, passing ideas back and forth. And what each person does with small movements of their body or where they put their weight, which is different than where they might have done, that changes the possibilities that come next. So you're together influencing each other, and you're also responding to a third party, the band or the music, which you are in and of as well. Almost when it's good, you completely lose yourself and you just become part of the band, expressing rhythms just with a different way. That's really nice. So there's that sense of not coming in and forcing things to be the way they are, but sharing an idea and then having it bounce back and then, hey, that's better actually. And we ended up doing something that neither of us have ever done before or could have thought of because of the interaction. And that feels like what can happen in a good work environment.
okay. I
Something
had
tells me you can tell a lot about dance partners by the way that you're watching them dance.
Yeah, and just feeling as well. So you've got this, when you've got that connection, you can feel where their weight is, you can feel how they move, you can feel how they move through life. Because all dance is really just fancy walking. And some people walk like they've got something wrong with them, and other people walk gracefully, and other people walk purposefully, and that comes into the dance as well.
man. I
Sorry, you
want
were about to say something, Jen.
yeah, I want to ask this, but I also have another thing I want to bring up, which is separate. All right, this is it. This is the problem with Tom. Okay, dance though. Everything you've just said, everything you've just said, obviously head nods all around, especially because it's in some form of community or communion with at least another dancer or a partner or whatever. And a lot of that resonates for me with hockey, which we've talked about before. You know, same idea in the ways that you're sensing and responding to so many things. The other players on the ice with you, the ice, everything, everything. So all of those involve other people. And I'm thinking about, okay, what about a solo dancer?
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's freestyle and improvised dance or whether it's choreographed dance, but a single dancer on a stage, maybe they're performing to an audience or who knows, like what the circumstances are. But if you take the dancer metaphor and you take the dancer out of collaborative in like the traditional sense kind of dance settings, I'm just now thinking about these metaphors for, again, for our kind of work, in a lot of the companies that we work with. It almost feels sometimes like the expectation is for this to work more like a dance, like a solo dance, a performance.
Yep.
And even if they say, well, we don't want your pre-choreographed dance because we're special, so we want to play some music for you and we want this to be improvised, they almost in a way are like, but we don't want to be your dance partner. We want a stage and we want a dance to happen. And there's almost like an erasure of the self on the part of the organization, or like a willing or non-willingness to be a dance partner. And I'm curious if you guys have ever thought about it, because I've not really thought about this before, but
No, but that really connects with something that I see even in partner dance, which is you get people come in with different levels of comfortableness. Is that a word? Comfort. It's a
It is
shorter
now.
word. Different levels of comfort with
Comfortability.
improvisation and freestyle. And that's a huge element of Lindy Hop, at least a huge element. If you're going to have to improvise a solo dance, that's a different skill from remembering a choreography and then repeating it. When you've got a partner, there are some people who do not want to do any freestyle. They want this to be a dance where you pull them around the floor and they go where they're told and they're given a nice ride. That's what I thought of with you, Jen. There are other partners who are almost the opposite end of the scale, where you just hold on and they go off, and you're not really there anymore. You're just support for somebody doing their show. And I think there are some organisations like that too. You're in there to be the witness to their fireworks.
This is so Kyle, here is our new framework to replace the 4 temperaments. Is when you get in working with an organization or a team, you got to figure out what kind of dance and what kind of dancer is really on the schedule here.
I don't know anything about dance.
All you need to know
Totally
is what Tom
lost.
just explained.
Okay.
You don't need to
All right. I
have
hope I can do that.
or anything like that. It'll be
I have
fun.
didn't know it the way Tom knows it somehow. Yeah.
Tom just gave us the facts. We don't need anything else.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I can see that the instructional component of it versus the improv. I see that in organizations more than just here's your stage. I do see that, but the one that stands out to me a lot more is the I don't feel safe to improvise. Tell me what exactly I can do, and if I can check these boxes, then I can prove I've accomplished exactly what you asked me to, and I'm covered. And if you tell me I did something wrong, I can prove to you that I did what you asked. That's really it. So I'm not going to stray from this. And so you better be explicit.
Yep. And in dance classes, we give people a small set of ways to improvise so that they have fewer choices to make. Because the difficult thing with improvisation is there are infinite choices. And what a skilled improviser is good at doing is constraining the choices on the fly because of whatever's happening.
Good old enabling constraints. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're a beginner, I'd see that all the time. Yeah, terrified of doing the wrong thing when there's no such thing as the wrong thing. It's literally you expressing yourself however you like, and no one's watching or critiquing. You just.
But there is a wrong thing, which is that you do something and that in your own mind's eye, you're really unhappy with it, or you're really let down by the fact that you're not an amazing dancer on your very first try, which I think a lot of people probably would never admit out loud, but subconsciously, that's literally what they're judging themselves about. And then they're not, and that sucks. And then they have to reckon with that. Or they make a fool of themselves, because even if no one's judging, everyone's still watching. And it's an interesting thing there, because, yeah, we all can be like, that's fine, nobody cares, but like, man, that stuff doesn't go away.
No, it's there. It's body still, isn't it?
What are you gonna do? You're gonna bake that into like the dance instruction, like it's all gonna be fine. Like, we won't go down that rabbit hole, but that's not always even ideal, even if that's possible,
No, yeah, it's not always an ideal. We do structure things to make it feel safer, to give you a chance to have that experience.
Yeah.
And be held, and it's not the end of the world, and actually we have a student who beats himself up hard.
Do you ever do things that like accelerate the like foolishness to kind of get it out of the way, like as early as possible, get people doing really stupid dumb shit they never thought they would ever do in front of other humans? I don't know much about dance instruction, but I would not sign up for these dance classes. There are plenty of things that I will do and make a fool of myself in front of giant public audiences, and I feel like dance
doesn't go on the advert. I'll tell you that. That's slipped into class 3.
Yeah, I'm all for ego death, but dancing and karaoke are off my list.
What are your ways for ego death then, if they're off the list?
You're looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. Exposing myself here, making the confessions publicly here.
That should be a question for everybody. We should start asking that of every single person that comes on this show.
Yeah, we should put the Catholic screen over our images here and offer confession.
You know what's funny with like I was thinking as we were talking about dancing too, that old like, oh, I have two left feet kind of thing. And like I would probably not sign up for Lindy Hop, but not because I'm like, ooh, I'm uncoordinated. I'm like medium coordinated. I'm not great and I'm not terrible. So it wouldn't be like that I'm not capable of feeling some level of success or growth or learning in the skill set, but it's more like the equation my brain does between how much joy I might get out of this process and how, and you know, is that worth the level of whatever it would be, the frustration or the, ugh, I'm not into this, like whatever, the non-tangible, you know, just whatever it is. And like you do that equation like in advance. You know, I have no idea how much joy I might take away from it, but I'm like doing the equation before I make the decision to sign up for that class. And so, you know, you're doing the anticipation whether you know it or not.
Yeah. Now, this is, we're still talking about dance, but we're not talking about dance at all. This is all
No.
exactly the same.
Yeah, listeners and viewers, I mean, you guys are, hopefully you're following the metaphors here, but...
Damn. That's a really powerful one. And I don't know, I mean, that's something I've never figured out, how to get people through the door whose expected emotional outcome is so low that they won't even try it to see if they're wrong.
Gosh. It is an interesting thing. I'm tempted, I was about to ask something separate, but how much of that is, so everybody's probably got a reason that they sign up. I can't imagine somebody just being like, I got to kill an hour. Like there's a reason, right? Like I want to learn this particular style of dance because it looks cool, or I saw it, or a friend, you know, or I'm getting married and I want to do, like there could be a personal intrinsic curiosity. There could be an end goal, whatever it is. But for someone who feels that but can't articulate it, like how do you put out like the bat signal for folks? And we're not talking about dance anymore, everybody, but like what is it that you do to be or to generate like the bat signal that indicates you don't actually need to be able to explicitly articulate why you're being drawn to this, just show up, you know?
You have to be in adjacent spaces.
Mm-hmm.
The thing.
Yeah.
And it has to look like it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, adjacency, I think, is the name of the game.
You know, you're reminding me, I was looking at this when we hosted our last Warm Data Lab last month, 2 months ago. And I don't want to, we didn't do a bad job of describing it or presenting it. We just didn't really do a job of presenting it or describing it. It's really hard to do.
Isn't that a bad job? No, I'm just kidding.
It's on par. It's exactly what you're supposed to do with warm data. You're supposed to be vague and put in language that, you know, if you're curious, you're going to want to say, I don't know what this is, but I want to check it out. And we still had 40 people show up because they came in, and some people had been to the last one, but probably half of the room showed up and said, I don't know what I'm walking into, but I came anyway. This is how I'm spending my Saturday afternoon, and I just want to see what it is because this didn't make sense to me for the most part. And that's like, there's some curiosity there that was really that was compelling enough for people to give up 4 hours of their day to check this out.
Is the session literally like the title on the adverts is Warm Data Lab?
Warm Data Lab, yep. And there was a link to Nora's site, which Nora's site is a little bit more even abstract than I think our Luma page was. So you have to go through all of her abstract images of wallpaper patterns and stuff. And I
but
I was amazed.
Curiosity inspiring coining. Warm data. What the hell is that?
It's also, so it is.
I know what warm is, but together?
Right.
Yeah.
It's abstract.
Although I did hear weird stuff.
But it has keywords. Like this is getting into a little bit of what we were talking about earlier, that it's not without signifiers. And it's not without the dog whistles in some cases that are keywords for certain groups or communities or folks with certain experiences or interests. So that's always really intriguing to me, that, how much of that's deliberate and how much of that is simply like itself an emergent process of a process itself changing and being, shared and communicated. And there's no value judgment in what I just said about it. It's more just, even Nora's site, minus words, is going to immediately attract a few people who are like, I don't know what this is, but I'm signing up. And a few other people are going to be like, I'm closing my laptop tab. No, thank you. And that's interesting to think about.
So the absence of that space there gets filled with a lot of stuff. So I was able to have conversations with a few of my friends that I just sent this over. And these are my friends. So one of them said, is this a singles event? And the other said, are you screening some like softcore porn? And all right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because who's it coming from? Where did I see this? How did this showed up on my feed? What was the source?
Right.
Nothing comes without the baggage and the context.
Some context somewhere.
It's coming with warm data along for the ride.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, swing dance often gets confused. You're going swinging, are you? Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. Interesting.
But I wonder
play that to your advantage if you get some more signups,
Could do. Just need the little bowl for the car keys in the middle. That'd be all right. But we're trying to move away from that image for some reason. But yeah, I wonder, like Lindy Hop, obscure, is that creating the curiosity triggers, or would we be better with something more like Warm Data Lab? Complexity methods. What's the Warm Data Lab equivalent? Participatory, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Well, and this is also where I have immense respect for Nora, because I know that she thinks really deliberately about word choice, and her choice of warm data in this case, for reasons you guys just pointed out, deliberate, strategic. But thinking about like our practices and our work and how we even talking about sales, you were very early on, you were like, and I don't lead with methods, and I don't either. But for the very first time at the end of last year, I finally bit the bullet because a few different people suggested I do this. They were inside client orgs. They were like, can you make a little one pager that actually says estrogen mapping? Because I find this is really intriguing. And I was like, I don't lead with the names of methods. It's just not what people want, and it doesn't resonate. And the people that I was chatting with, and the one in particular conversation I'm recalling, she's like, most of the time I would agree with you, but I have this group of people will be intrigued. It sounds neat. It sounds interesting. It's intriguing. It's got the warm data kind of thing going on. They won't know what it is, but, and I lay out at a high level, probably not even, well, I was about to say not Dave Snowden approved, but probably Dave Snowden approved because it's obviously from that, but it's more like, it's not at the level of what are we doing and why. I'm not getting into Latour. I'm not getting into, actor network theory. I'm just laying out high level descriptions that I would normally use, and then just with like estrogen mapping at the top. And I did that begrudgingly. But it did, in this case, and with one other client, they were like, now I'm going to share this with people internally. And it's turned into some stuff. And I'm like, okay. So even when you don't expect it, like that is a form of that probing in that context sort of dependent process bearing out, literally in contradiction to what you have found to be true everywhere else. So even the choice of Lindy Hop or swing or whatever you might use, you're going to need to you should take out like 4 different ads in the paper or wherever you're actually advertising. I don't even know. And they all look like they're for a different class. And everybody shows up together. Like, that's it, man.
Yay, that could work. Somebody suggested something similar for businesses. There's nothing to stop you from operating as 6 different businesses with entirely different ways of talking about what you do.
That's a lot of work, man.
I know, that's the thing that stops you. There is something to stop you.
It's funny, this does tie back a little bit to the science communication thing, but I'll just share this. one of the things when I was working in that world and on some topics related to, if you know that people who have different sets of values regimes, cultural worldviews, however you want to think about it, you know that they're going to be a little bit more primed to find certain words or keywords threatening or affirming. And so, you get to this point where the natural conclusion is, well, I should create 4 different versions of our messaging so that this version will appeal to these people and this will, and like, A, that's a lot of work. B, how do you guarantee the right people see the right message, right? Everybody, even 15 years ago, people were like, even if it's hard now, eventually with AI or, personalization, we'll be able to personally tailor it down to the individual. I'm like, no, you won't. Stop. But because the individual is not even a thing. Forget that. But
Yeah.
the real answer is done. Mic drop. There's a much easier way to do it, which is to keep the level of abstraction just a little bit higher so everyone can put what they want into the meaning of the word. And what I remember being struck by was like, that's not something that somebody invented with technology in the last decade. That's ancient rhetoric. And like the entire study and process by which you come up with meaningful metaphors or whatever, this is why it's all just, everything comes back around again. So when you talk about, you just rebranded though. I mean, so that there's that, but like, I feel like you can do a lot with an octopus metaphor that you couldn't do, say, with, other metaphors. And I feel like that's what it comes down to, is you picked a good metaphor. You didn't just brand into a different company for people to go, this company does this for this niche in this industry. It's the metaphor. Maybe yes. I'm reading.
I did have the fun the other day of a client asked why the octopus, and so I told him exactly why the octopus.
Do you want to explain it here for the viewers in case folks don't know?
Sure. So it wasn't why the octopus, it was why crown and reach. Why called crown and reach? And that is, it's an octopus thing, and it's because I'm a massive nerd. I've convinced my partner Corissa to read the book that this is from, which is Adrian Tchaikovsky's Children series, which is just wonderful. A series about empathy, I would say, radical empathy. But in the second book of the series, Children of Ruin, there are, spoiler alert, if you haven't read it and you want to read it, skip past this because I'm going to tell you some stuff. There are uplifted octopuses, and then he explores how octopus society might work given the way that what we know about octopus neurology now. And there's a passage in the book that explains it really well, several passages where they're explaining how these octopuses operate. And there's a really cool bit that I'll get to in a minute. But the idea is there's the crown, like the head, which is the coherent centre and sort of overview of everything. But it doesn't have the detailed signals from all of the tentacles, and it can't do command and control on the tentacles because there's too much. There's 8 legs to deal with. So each of the legs has its own brain, and that is the reach. So 8 independently operating tentacles, each of which can solve problems at its own level, but can get stuck in the weeds where it is, unless it's being co-coordinated by the crown. And it's a metaphor for octopuses and octopus society, as it is in the book, but it's also how we've seen really effective organisations work, having that sense of coherence while also a sense of independent exploration and probing. At which point the client said, well, that's a lot. He was not sold.
I don't want all that, dude. Just give me the wireframes. Give me the roadmap.
The other cool thing about this uplifted octopus society, I don't know if either of you have read the book, the thing that happens is the octopuses, they make decisions by sort of warring with each other, a little bit like our brain parts do. You've got the parliament of the brain, haven't you? But theirs is more physical, and they're flashing colours on their skin and wrestling with each other until a decision is made. The thing that's really weird, freaky and cool is they have no need to do retrospective coherence. They make the decision emotionally and in this emergent way, and then they're cool with that, and they don't have to justify it, and they just carry on. And that I thought that was interesting from our perspective.
Oh, the aspirational there in that. So I'm intrigued though. So your client, well, okay. If someone just sees the words crown and reach and they don't make a connection to an octopus, of course, they might not have the benefit of all of that. But like when you have
I think we're probably a pub. But...
is that what you're finding? I guess that could make sense. That's not bad either. Well, that's how many people hear topology, but they think topography and they think topography map, which I'm not mad about because I kind of, it's all in the mix. But
Mhm.
but there's such beauty in that metaphor that extends immediately. I guarantee like you're going to clip that section, you share that somewhere and people immediately are off and running in the ways that that connects to things and experiences they've had. Now, if you're in a sales conversation, it's a transactional environment, whatever. Maybe it's different. Maybe they don't want the metaphor. They just want, how can you help me? But
Done. Yeah.
yeah,
Dance for me.
yes. I'm going to play this song. I want you to dance it, but I don't want you to dance it the same way you've danced for anybody else.
Yeah, but I do want you to have done that dance before.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I need this exact dance, but you can't do it the way you've danced for anybody else. But it needs to be this exact dance. I need to know that you've done this before, but you better not do it the way you've done it before.
Oh, this
Needs
is
to
cool.
satisfy all the regulatory and audit requirements and be documented and
Yeah, in
logged
fact, I'm going to
in
need you to
knowledge management.
pre-dance the dance and send me the video and the proof of the dance. And then when you go to dance it, you absolutely cannot deviate from
Yeah,
what you've sent
sign
previously.
off by all relative
And then,
stakeholders
well,
prior to dancing.
And a post-dance audit trail.
It's a miracle to me that we struggle to have any kind of creativity within organizations.
We'll send an NPS survey out to the audience, but the audience won't be real humans. It is all AI agents. And we'll draw a service blueprint that outlines the front stage and backstage interactions that would happen to support the dance.
And you're on the hook
itself.
for a 4.1 NPS score. So you better have a strategy for how you're going to achieve that or respond to it.
But all of this is another reason why when we start the dance class, we just put on music and get everyone walking around the room. And then we add in some rhythms, and then we do some difficult steps, some stuff that pushes them, and then we come back to just walking, and then we put some of the... That is getting you warmed up, but it's also a ritual that shifts you from all of that we were just talking about into, oh, this is dance space now, and we're going to be trying some stuff, and it's not all going to be easy, and we're going to have a go, and it's okay. And we're all in a circle.
Those are the bags. Those are the bags I was talking about. We just put our bags down just now. Those are the bags we're carrying into all those spaces. So, yeah, what you're doing, that ritual, is putting those bags down. I love it.
You said earlier, and I wrote down, like, you're tricking to get people to doing things. You trick people into doing things so that then the other things can become, tricking might not be the verb we all want to use in public, but this is one of the reasons why I'm very comfortable with, even though the notion of doing work with clients or internally in an organization that is meant to actually improve something, the way we work together, the things we deliver to people, can't really be accomplished inside a container of a workshop or, this or that. It's why I'm still very comfortable with that being the initial thing or the only thing sometimes. And it's rare. I mean, it's not often that that's the only thing I do for a client. Usually it's a little bit of a longer term engagement, right? But I don't turn those down. And I'm increasingly, faced with folks who are like, I'm surprised, but those workshops or single setting engagement sort of collaborative things are very much that first class. Just get them walking around and see how they move around to the beat of a piece of music,
Yeah, and sometimes, do you see then the people who are like you with the dance, who don't expect they're going to like this, who are starting with their arms folded behind the laptop armor, taking it a bit unseriously, and then they go, oh, start leaning in, and maybe there is something here.
Yeah. And this is probably too obvious, but so much of that is also so reminiscent of teaching, being a classroom teacher. And having, a room of 30 kids who span the gamut from I want my gold star to, oh my God, I can't do this anymore, and everything in between. And the teachers who really fought hard or created like weird militant kind of like prison societies inside their classrooms to ensure that every kid was, complying with like attention. That's just such a futile thing, right? It's the ones who figured out how to just keep moving through, and eventually even those kids who are like not paying attention accidentally find themselves doing the lab. They started out fooling around with the materials because you put them out for them to play with, and then suddenly they're like, wait, I'm playing with this and I'm doing it. And I don't want to, I'm always so worried that like some client of mine's going to watch something on here and be like, wow, Jen thinks about me as a 12-year-old physics student or something, but it's not different. Humans are humans. And like, you're not, if somebody wants to be in the back of the workshop room looking at their laptop the whole time and not paying attention, okay, I'm not going to make a big show out of it. You're here and I'm here, and let's do whatever we're going to do together, and everyone will work it out.
It was an epic comment on that recent Adam Mastroianni piece, just to bring it full circle back round.
Love it.
Which is exactly that. Humans are humans. It's just that if it's a parent and children or a teacher and children, there's a different power differential.
Mm-hmm.
And
Fair.
therefore, you reach for the rules more easily. They work more effectively.
You want the policies and the protocols because well, I was about to say because they can work, but you assume that they'll work.
Assume they'll work. They will get compliance. They won't work.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good call on that. I guess we're getting close to the time. We still have a little bit, but with an eye on the clock, is there anything we didn't talk about, Kyle or Tom, that you want to like insert now?
Well, one I wanted to just put a pin in, which we might do another time even. We could do a quick teaser now, but Kyle asked, how do we get anything done in organisations with all this stuff going on? And I've been playing with how I think people do get that done by blowing uncertainty bubbles.
Yes.
Which is creating these weird little protected spaces where the rules inside can be different and where you are shielded from the rest of the organisation and the need for total legibility, the need for compliance to protocols, the need for everything to be done the correct way. And that's an interesting thing that I've noticed works. It emerged from trying different things and realising, right, I can't just make a whole organisation be innovative because that would just blow the whole thing up. In fact, I did that. I accidentally derailed an entire engineering and product organisation by giving them a bit too much reality exposure all in one go. So I don't do that anymore. You create a safe space where you can do that with a few people, but to the outside, to the rest of the organisation, it doesn't look threatening. It doesn't look like something that's going to be dangerous, so the antibodies don't come out to eat it or destroy it.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed like reading or listening wherever I've seen you talk about uncertainty bubbles before. I like this, and it strikes me because the concept of bubbles and blowing bubbles, temporary bubbles that can come into existence and leave existence, and have that not be a giant tragedy. That's okay. That's like by design. It's not a sandbox that we're building and calling it R&D or calling it skunkworks or calling it this or that, so that later we can then close it when it gets overrun by ants or bugs and we need to just get rid of it. We just lop that arm off the business, right? So the temporality of the bubble I like. And then the other piece of this that I find very appealing is that it's contained, but the membrane in this metaphor is, there is some visibility. It's opaque, but it's not clear, in that way. And sometimes I get like bio-containment / quarantine vibes from that. I think in some orgs, that's probably what it feels like. Like they can do all that inside. The Ebola is inside the plastic, so I'm not worried about it. But whether or not what you're doing is likely to be seen as Ebola or whimsy inside a bubble, like we'll leave to the organizational culture. But I think this is a very powerful way of thinking about stuff, and we should dig into it more. I mean, we can go for a few more minutes if there's more to say.
There's always more to say. But yeah.
How do you do it? Get practical for us.
Right.
So, get practical for us. So, there's a practical example I shared in an article, which we can share and link and read that. But it is a lot of what you'll be familiar with already. There's a lot of improvisation with it. And there's a lot of, what's it called? Effectuation. So, not causation, but is it effectuation I'm thinking of? Yeah. What you're going to do is basically rig something together based on what's lying around in the organisation right now. And there's the skill, if there is one, is noticing what is going to be a container that the organisation will feel is safe that will also create the possibility to have different conditions inside. And some of the really critical conditions that you need to pay attention to are tempo. Most organizations operate at a tempo that is suitable for management and prediction. And so it's quarterly decisions, sometimes even longer. Budget cycles are yearly. You can't innovate at that tempo. You've got to have faster cycles. If you're thinking about what you need to do to innovate as well, it's also a process of reorientation. And we could get into loads of OODA stuff. Dave's recent stuff on OODA Rewilded was exceptional.
Chef's kiss.
But, yeah. And something that I noticed, and which is where uncertainty bubbles sort of were birthed from, is every project that I ever worked on that was successful ended up nothing like anyone anticipated when we started. And every project that failed stuck to the vision. But if you're working in an organization and you have to work at the speed of politics, at the speed of sharing the narrative, bringing everyone around, building influence, making sure everyone feels it's okay. If you have to work at that tempo, you can't reorient fast enough to be able to actually find something that works and innovate.
Yeah.
So tempo is huge. You have to create a completely different tempo inside the bubble, ideally something on the order of days, even hours sometimes, so you can operate fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. The other thing is the conditions on the inside. This is one that's a bit more mushy, but it needs to be safe for people to be wrong, because you are wrong and you're going to be wrong a lot until you start to find out things that are not wrong. And you create the conditions inside where people run towards the biggest uncertainty rather than holding that at bay, hoping that it will sort itself out later. Whereas on the outside of the bubble, you don't present any of that. You don't present that we're operating at this frantic tempo that would make you all very uncomfortable, because we're not going through all of the processes at all, and we're not using official tools at all, and you don't present that you are wrong. You have to still present that we're getting there, progress is being made, we've built some stuff that's working, and hey, here's the thing that we found out that's really interesting, testing narratives into the organization. And that's a big one. We've done the inside of the bubble. The outside of the bubble needs to be information radiator and sensors coming back to figure out what is the narrative landscape we're operating with here. What are the power relationships? Who's scared by when I say this? And it's that language we get to as well. Sensing, when I say this, they lean away. When I say this, they lean in. This they've connected to something else and it's started to spread by itself. Great, that's what we're going to double down on. Let's reshape what we're doing here so it still works as an innovation with reality, but is also acceptable to the organization.
Yeah, love it.
Never
there was an
said it like
episode. Oh, go ahead.
I've never said it like that before, but that's still working out as we go.
I mean, but I have to imagine that resonates with so many people. And there was an episode a while back, Kyle and I were talking about like kind of a combination of concepts of pace layers, not unlike the way you're talking about the different tempos that things are happening at. And we were talking about, I don't remember now the details, but it was like timing. If you're trying to launch a satellite, a window will open and then it closes and you might have to wait a while again. And it's not just waiting for Windows opportunity, because it's also like you're moving around like a racetrack while you're waiting. So you're trying to wait for other things to get in line with you at the same time, or planets to come into alignment briefly. And then in the meantime, you might move to an inner track and move at a faster pace, or you might move to an outer track and move at a slower pace. And we were just off in a zone around tempo and windows of opportunity. And then later when I saw you writing about uncertainty bubbles, I was like, God damn, there it is. Like, that's the thing. And it was just like a nice, you've said it all in a far more articulate and I think meaningful way, an actionable way than us talking in silly metaphors about racetracks and satellite launches. But
yours is more fun. And I think the thing I've noticed when I look back is, there were a bunch of execs who intuitively knew how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they would make things happen that seemed impossible. But there was a limit to their ability to hold the space.
Yeah.
And you have to respect that as well.
Yeah. But you didn't ask those leaders to externalize how and why you do what you do. You recognize, you observe, like you said, projects that have succeeded versus ones that haven't. What do they have in common? What do they not? And so this becomes commonality or a container, but not a protocol, not a recipe. So I like it. I like it. I like it very much. Maybe that's a good
What
place to wrap, unless there's more. Kyle, were you about to say more?
I was just going to comment that what I really like about this is I've done a lot of the Google design sprints over the years, and this, oof. So first of all, there's a lot of pressure to that's going to be the first step in our roadmap building, and so at the end of the sprint, you better have your plan ready to go. Obviously, this is not that. What also happens in that is you're really ambitious in that space. You discover a lot of potential, and instead you go with the safest thing to put in the roadmap, but you can't unring that bell. So everybody walks out of that room pissed off at all of the work that's not getting done. And then that affects the whole rest of the project and everybody else's trajectory for the next however long. This I really like in that it certainly doesn't isolate the space from that. Like, you're still going to realize interesting potential and uncover some hidden corpses in some funny places. And then you're going to carry that outside the bubble from time to time. But this is still isolated enough that it doesn't have that same pressure. It doesn't have that same, it has to be refined into something as the design sprint. So I love this as a offer to replace that sprint.
Yeah, that's a really nice one to wrap up on, because the Google Design Sprint is a sort of uncertainty bubble, but where you are promising too much, where it's too legible, and that's why they struggle. And I've run a bunch of them as well. And the answer that comes out is always, well, it's not that, or it's mostly not that, but there's a germ of a seed there. It's not, hey, we're going to build the thing and it's going to work. And it was actually running 3 simultaneous design sprints, which is how I blew up that company that time. Because we got to the Friday, tested everyone's best ideas, and everything bombed. And they realised we don't know our customers at all.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Hire Tom, everybody. We'll put his link in the comments.
Whoop, whoop.
Well, on that note, I want to say thank you for joining us. This is fabulous. We'll give you the last word or anything you might want to say or share. We won't have a last word, so you can insult us and do whatever you'd like. Tom, we give it to you.
Oh, let's give it with both barrels then. Yeah. No, thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute delight. You can find me, more of my work, etc., at crownandreach.com, or come and join us for a pint.
We'll put your address in the description.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Perfect.
This was great.